How to make creative writing interesting. Oh my goodness. Anyway, so writing interesting sentences is actually not that difficult. Writing interesting paragraphs over and over and over is actually not that difficult either. But a lot of students struggle with this because they often just don't get the practice in, or more the point, they don't read enough or read widely enough, and so the vocabulary is a lot more limited than it should be, and it can become somewhat of a stumbling block. So let's look at some of the tools you can use to help you improve that writing. So get to know figurative language, similes, metaphors, personification, these three in particular. Obviously there are others, alliteration, hyperbole, and so on. Hyperbole, or hyperbole as I prefer to call it, is actually a good one as well. That's, you know, when you exaggerate something. Sarah received a package in the post. She'd been waiting for it for the past 2 weeks. She opened it with so much excitement that her fingers couldn't get through the packaging quick enough, and then her heart sank. She felt as if it was the end of the world. Okay, that end of the world is a hyperbole. Her heart sank is also a hyperbole. It's an exaggeration. So before we carry on with this amazing video, please remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications so that you will get notified every time a new Geek School video goes up. Enjoy! Similes are good because they are a comparison, and it really helps to bring the writing to life. Okay, so let's go back to Sarah. And when she opened the package, it was as disappointing as being sent an empty envelope in the post. The as or the like of comparison is what makes the simile, you know, and it makes the writing really come to life. Similes tend to be a lot easier to write than metaphors, but metaphors is when you describe you know, a noun as being something else. In the example of the metaphor, Sarah's package was an uncommon insult. There we go. Okay, so or Sarah's package from XXX company was an uncommon insult. That's a metaphor. Try not to learn metaphors and sort of regurgitate them. I often advise that students don't do that because, you know, you don't want to be in an exam trying to rack your brains about a metaphor that you have been memorizing. You know, memorize what the devices are for your English literature, poetry sections and so on. Don't memorize metaphors, be creative, you know, practice creating them so that you can think on the spot, you know, really practice creating them so you can think on the spot. And that's a good way into making your writing more interesting. Another important point to note is the use of adjectives. So adjectives basically add more detail to the noun. They describe the noun. So instead of writing something like John ran home shutting the door, you could write something like John ran home shutting the navy blue front door. Okay, navy blue is an adjective. Any word that you can use to add further detail to the noun, you should probably do it, okay? Because it makes the writing a lot more interesting and it gives more detail to the reader so they can really visualize and picture you know, what's being described in the writing, and it's that level of detail and description that really helps. And here's another thing. I always tell my students to remember the senses: to see, to hear, to taste, to smell, and to touch. Those 5 senses. You want your reader to be able to do all of those if you're describing any senses. So if somebody took a bite into a sandwich, what happened then? If it's a really good sandwich, you know, let's just say it's a BLT, bacon, lettuce and tomato sandwich. As the reader, I want to be able to taste the crispy, salty bacon. And the mayonnaise bringing everything together, the lettuce, the juicy tomatoes. You know, as I even describe this to you, my taste buds have come alive, okay? And so when you add that level of explanation, that detail with the senses, it helps you add more detail, because I just described the sandwich and then all of a sudden I felt as if my taste buds have come alive, you know. So then I've got a simile to add to that. So writing about the senses can also help you increase your description and make it more vivid for the reader, and all of that generally equals more marks. That's how we add more detail to creative writing. You know, if I go back to that BLT sandwich, I want to be able to smell it, okay? You know, the smell of the freshly cut bread overtook Joshua's nostrils. The hairs in his nose sighed in anticipation. Something along those lines, you know, or awoken in that instant. You know, really dramatize it. See yourself as sort of being on a stage performing the writing. You know, you don't have to be crazy and gaga about English to do well. You literally just need to know the techniques. You need to know how to play the game. How to play the game is to use all the devices that I've mentioned. And then finally, you have to check your writing. You have to check what you've written. Now, a lot of students who struggle with English generally don't like reading through their writing. And I'm going to say this, and no insult intended, but if you find it a bore to read through your writing, it's probably going to bore whoever's marking. And I mean that with the best will in the world. Make it interesting for yourself, and the person who's marking your work will also gain an interest, okay? If it's boring to read, another technique is to read every paragraph as you go. It's actually a good use of time as well, especially if you're the type of student that often runs out of time and then never gets to read through and check everything. If you stop, quickly read through, look for any spelling mistakes, check that it sounds right, check for punctuation. Many students do not punctuate properly. I've seen crimes to literature where you've got 6 or 7 lines and literally it starts with a capital letter, ends with a full stop, and there's no punctuation anywhere in between. You know, try and read your writing only breathing where there is a comma or a full stop. If you're reading and you take a pause, check to see if there is a comma or a semicolon or a full stop. If you need to breathe, then you need to punctuate your work differently. That's the test that I often give to students, and it's very effective. Where possible, you should try and read out. Obviously, you know, you're not going to shout it out in any sort of exam or classroom setting. So you need to train yourself to be able to read quietly enough that it doesn't disturb other people, but it's loud enough that you can hear the mistakes. Okay, you can hear when things don't sound right. You can hear when a word has been misspelt, because as you're reading, read the words as they are on the paper. Don't read ahead because you already know what you've written. Read the word as you've written it, and that will really help you to spot spelling mistakes. So I hope that has been helpful. Please remember to head over to the Geek School website. There are lots more resources available now. I've made it my mission to get this, to get a bank of resources to help children with their writing. And so we have lots of things for 11 plus preparation, and now GCSE English language, I'm so happy to announce. So please remember to share the resources, share the love to your friends, family, relatives, extended relatives, and so on. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.